What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. About time we finish off the August pay-per-views. You guys wanted this and I thought, why not deliver? 2009. Man, it's been a while since I made a video from this time period. Probably since that Hornswoggle and Chavo Guerrero thing. Obviously, I look at the year fondly as a kid. You know, the summer of Hardy. SmackDown in general was on this unstoppable roll. The show flew by so quickly with 4-star matches, excellent stories unfolding each week. But Raw, on the other hand, it's best to not talk about. There's, of course, some positives from it. You know, Randy Orton's superb, paranoid, unstable character. There's a couple of things on Monday nights. It's just some of the guest hosts were downright cringe. Not all, of course, but the negative perception of 2009 WWE comes from the fact that Raw was bad. With that said, SummerSlam 2009 was held in the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California on August 23, 2009. 14,116 were in attendance to witness John Cena and Randy Orton. The buy rate was 369,000, which was down from 08 and 07's, and the theme song for the event was You Gotta Move by Aerosmith. Right as the show began, DX decided to mess around with the intro. They poked fun at Legacy before awkwardly standing in the middle of nowhere after ruining the video production. They had just reformed earlier that month and were set to embark on one final run. The message here was simple. They're back. Okay. The first match was for the Intercontinental Championship. Rey Mysterio defended the coveted gold against Dolph Ziggler. Damn, I remember this. The reason why I sound hyped about it now is because SmackDown was on fire that year. You asked somebody to name the 3 best wrestlers from that year, and I just assumed Rey was one of them. People felt that he was slower since returning from injury and he lacked memorable matches, but in 09 he had those in abundance. Didn't matter if it was with Dolph Ziggler or Chris Jericho, he was going to deliver. It was going to be at least a good match, and I can't see anything bad about the year for himself. About Dolph Ziggler, he was a part of this new generation of talent, you know, Drew, Sheamus, Miz, Morrison, those guys. He was starting to shine on SmackDown, but it took a while for him to overtake those guys, you know? Like, he wasn't winning titles, he wasn't having memorable moments, he wasn't having good promos and all that. Okay, the bell rings and Dolph quickly goes in the attack. Rey takes notice and goes for strikes before walking directly into a power slam. Dolph was showing he was serious, trying to steal the match, refusing to let Rey rest, and he was in his element. Rey, of course, was donning Lakers colors, champions of that year, and he quickly caught Dolph with a moonsault that wowed the crowd. Despite this, the challenger was still persistent, and so Rey had to rely on his speed and size. Had scissors off the apron that knocked down the cameraman as well, but Ziggler wasn't really out of control. He was adapting to the situation, and suddenly, he opted to wear down Mysterio in order to prevent those aerial moves. He was focusing on the neck, dropping Rey on his back, and the champion just couldn't break free at this moment. Even after catching him with a drop toe hold, Ziggler rebounded with a rough-looking clothesline, a gutbuster, yet Mysterio was kicking out. So it's back to the submission holds. Fans slowly rallied the champion on. Some quick combinations and near falls coming from both men, and it concluded with yet another clothesline. Rey avoided a back suplex, and it seemed like Ziggler was in 619 position. He ducked before hitting the Famouser, and again, Rey kicked out. Once both men were recovered, there was some trickery from Rey that almost gave him the victory. Dolph tried going for a body slam, but Rey countered with a DDT. 1, 2, no. Dropkick into the ropes, and it's a 619. Springboard wasn't to be, and Dolph goes for it. 1, 2, he kicked out. He was slowly losing his composure. Let's go Ziggler, let's go Rey chants intensify, and he boots Rey right onto the apron. Dolph decides to go for a press slam off the top, but Rey twisted his body around and hit the Hurricanrana. 1, 2, 3. Wow. That was really impressive, and I say this a bit too much, but this match should be talked about more. Dolph Ziggler stood his ground with Rey. He got frustrated, going for high-risk moves such as this, but Rey caught him. He caught him with that damn Hurricane, and I loved it. It was straight up a sprint from the beginning. It had fast-paced, impactful action. If you've never watched it before, I think you'll love it. It was the best choice to open the show, and for sure one of the more overlooked matches from 2009. Now, the original plan for this match was apparently Dolph Ziggler standing tall, winning the IC title. Rey Mysterio didn't like this because he was promised a long title reign, and so he refused to lose the title, right? Then 5 days later, it was announced that he was suspended for violating the wellness policy, and to make matters worse, he spoke about it in an interview in Mexico. So he had a lot of heat. Poor Dolph never got to win the title afterwards, and it wasn't until the summer of 2010 when he started to gain some momentum with Vicky Guerrero by his side. In the back, Josh Matthews interviewed both Jack Swagger and MVP. These two men at this point were at the cusp of breaking out, like when you look at it from a 2009 perspective, but this feud was about the differences between both men. Swagger was claiming to be the clean-cut guy that's already found success, whereas he called MVP an ex-con. He called him an ex-con that uses his own hype to mask his physical shortcomings, and MVP said that he wished that he had Swagger's life as a kid. Sure, he made bad decisions, but he paid for those sins. While Swagger was in NCAA winning a trophy, he was in the DOC, and his prize was the right to live another day. And MVP described it best: the spoiled jock against the ex-con that's trying to make things right. He was hell-bent on teaching Jack a list. Alright, the next match was of course between Jack Swagger and MVP. Swagger's song will never not remind me of STR 2010 and 11. Every time I hear that song, it takes me back to 2009. And as I was saying earlier, there was high hopes for Swagger to break through. He wasn't bad in the ring. He had a couple of good matches, was ECW champion, and there was optimism in the back. MVP, this one is puzzling to me. I feel like they could have done a program with Randy Orton. I'm not saying he should have won the title or anything like that, but it would have been better than another John Cena feud. But anyways, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the match itself. So the bell rings. Swagger opts for the power game, whereas MVP's tactic was much more effective at this point. He was quicker, agile, and because of this, Jack ran to the outside. Montel responded by diving off the top rope, but he got a little ahead of himself. He drove him directly into the turnbuckle, showboated, and delivered some huge blows to the back. MVP was trying to break free, but found himself in the abdominal stretch, and this was a struggle for him to escape. Even then, once he escaped, he was rewarded with a huge clothesline. Jack wasn't wasting time going for a chin lock, and MVP had to desperately lift and slam him on the mat. Also, for some reason, the commentary team was promoting this match as essentially the breakout match for both men. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. Montel's trying to build some of that momentum. Swagger's getting phased with these punches and knees, and it was time for the ball in. Elbow. Playmakers countered, and Swagger goes to the roll-up along with the tights. MVP kicks out. Then, he opted to wrap things up, but Montel put his knees up, and he walked into a big boot. MVP then hits the Playmaker. 1, 2, 3. Not a bad match. I honestly wasn't bored at all. It just wasn't out of this world or anything like that. For the time they had, I somewhat enjoyed it. There's not much to say about it other than that. It was a basic match. It was pretty average. Wasn't special. And both men would continue being stuck in the mid-card for a few months afterwards. We all know what happened to Swagger, though. The next match is the Unified Tag Team Championship. Chris Jericho and The Big Show defended the titles against JTG and Shad Crime Time. So I think I said this before, but 2009 was Jeff Hardy and Chris Jericho's year. It didn't matter what Y2J was doing that year, it was a big deal. His name was attached to anything. It felt notable. It felt big time. It was all good. In the ring, he said that the celebrities in the arena are hypocrites and parasites just like the fans, and unlike them, him and Big Show are actually real superstars. They're in the upper echelon, and they're by far the most famous people in this arena. To him, their legendary status is cemented forever. Jericho began hyping up Big Show before handing him the mic. He didn't say much because Crime Time interrupted. Now, on the topic of Crime Time, Chris Jericho had put them over huge by having JTG beat him. It shows just how selfless he was. He was all in on making somebody look good. Okay, the bell rings and JTG and Jericho start things off. Collar and elbow, side headlock, shoulder tackle, and JTG shows off his athleticism. Y2J quickly figured things out and almost went for the walls, but he instead catapulted JTG to the top before walking into something. Ref gets involved, leading to a right hand, and Purple Big Show, one of the toughest iterations of his in my opinion, is tagged in. He legit stepped on his leg before whooping his ass. He was like that big-ass bully, and JTG just couldn't find an answer at the moment. He found this little opening and shads in. Now the fans got excited, but Big Show just speared him. Chris gets tagged in and arrogantly allowed Shad to recover, and it wasn't such a good idea. JTG, meanwhile, was making the mistake allowing the heels to do some dirty work because the ref couldn't notice. Show then went for this full Nelson. Fans tried rallying him on, but before he can escape, he's knocked down. The former IC champion's back in, and immediately he makes a mistake. Shad was desperately eyeing a tag, but he didn't have the energy nor the wherewithal to actually do it. Jericho locked him in a rest hold, but before he knew it, Shad hit a power slam. JCG finally gets the tag, and the pace kicked up a notch. He didn't give a damn, even assaulting a Big Show. Shad knocks him down, and JTG almost scored that W, but Chris kicked out. Suddenly, he's caught in the walls. JTG refused to give up. Fans were fully supporting him. They believed, and he reached the rope, but Big Show KO'd him. 1, 2, 3. Another enjoyable match. Fans were supportive of Crime Time. The heels were gaining heat, especially in the final moments. And again, it's puzzling to think that these two were never tag team champions. It just doesn't sound right. Like when I was watching this a few days ago, I was just kind of confused as to how these two never won the title. Like, it seems like they actually won it before, but they never did. But yes, that was a decent match. It was one of Crime Time's most memorable matches, I should note. I want to know, do you guys think Crime Time should have won this match? I mean, you all could agree that they should have won the tag titles, though, but yeah. In the back, Josh Matthews interviewed CM Punk. As expected, he's going to speak about Jeff Hardy. He brought out a screenplay of a Jeff Hardy story that ends with him beating Punk, and to him, it was fake, phony, just like everybody in LA. But Punk wasn't insulting LA, he was also talking about the rest of the world. He talked about how you have people following magazines, and there's more to life than following any hip, cool star. Didn't matter if it was a vampire in Twilight or Jeff Hardy. It doesn't matter if they got a questionable lifestyle. If they're the nice trendy thing, they're going to follow that celebrity. CM Punk whined about being dismissed as preachy. As to himself, he was telling it like it is. With regards to the main event, it might be hard to watch for people, but it will have a happy ending. Man, every time I go to 2011, I'm like, damn, this Punk is probably the best version of himself. But every time I'm making something related to 2009, I often question that statement. It goes to show just how elite of a competitor he was/is. This promo was no different. It was excellent because Punk was preaching the truth, and nothing he said was wrong, but his attitude towards it is what makes him the heel. The next match was between Kane and the Great Khali. Oh yeah, this feud. I don't really remember watching it as a kid. It fails to stand out like the other stuff. But it was heated, Kane was brutalizing Khali, assaulting Ranjin Singh, all that. The match began with Khali right out of the gate aggressively going after Kane. He had to rely on a cheap shot in order to go on the offense, and the match as expected was the slowest of the night. Does it mean slow equals bad? No, but in this case, I didn't really like the match. Kane was much quicker than Khali with the whole rope thing, a drop kick, and already he was looking to wrap it up after a few elbows. Khali, though, removed his hand and clotheslined the Big Red Machine. He cornered him for a bit before walking into a flying clothesline. Kane decided to try wearing down Khali, and after about a minute, he stands up to his feet and elbows the Big Red Monster. Thus begins the comeback. He even hit the chop, but Kane kicked out. Then Khali went for the vice grip. Kane desperately reaches the rope, leading to him bringing Ranjin Singh into the ring. Khali gets confused. Kane throws him and goes for the drop kick before catching the Great Khali with a DDT. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I didn't really like this one. It was pretty sluggish and awkward at some point, but hey, whatever. They would continue feuding, heading into breaking point before Kane turned into a babyface once more. Well, Khali, come to think about it, he didn't really do much after this. Yeah, he didn't do much at all until his move back to SmackDown in 2011. And it's time. The return of D-Generation X, Triple H and Shawn Michaels face Legacy, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase Jr. Now, a lot of people give this version of DX flack for obvious reasons. It felt like they were shilling their merchandise every 2 minutes, or full-on PG, childish, but one thing you could always count on at the time was for DX to deliver at least a good matchup. So long story short, Triple H was eyeing the WWE Championship, but every single time he came close to the title, Rhodes and DiBiase would ruin everything. He had enough but couldn't really fend off the up-and-coming duo alone. Enter Shawn Michaels. As expected, the returning duo had an extravagant entrance. After a bit, Triple H said that it's been a while before asking the fans if they're ready. He told Cody and DiBiase that if they want a war, they've got it. He shouted, "Let's get ready to suck it." 2 words for ya, and the opponents came out. Okay, so the bell rings. Hunter and Ted start things off, collar and elbow tie up, and the ref had to forcibly break it, and even then that didn't work. Triple H delivered a huge strike that wowed DiBiase, and so he opted to quickly attack. Triple H took notice and brought the fight. First cover of the match was a kick out, and DiBiase finds a little opening and runs out of there, which meant Cody was left alone in between DX. Nonetheless, his arrogant side showed here. Michaels thought it's time to enter, and for the first time since WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels was in the ring. Aggressive lockup, shoulder tackle. Rhodes makes a rookie mistake but rebounds with a slap. Michaels grew frustrated with this, leading to an intense moment, and Cody was really standing his ground. But as expected, he had to pay the price. The sweet chin music was nearly executed, but to no avail. He tried to catch HBK off guard but failed, but despite this, he righted the ship and tagged DiBiase in. Shawn punished him with those chops before running into a corner and taking a clothesline. Ted was pretty impatient, was very aggressive in offense, and thus the isolation began. Kayfabe-wise, they knew Shawn Michaels hadn't had a match since WrestleMania 25. He had ring rust, he lacked the conditioning, all that. But with that said, Legacy was doing work. Michaels had a little moment there leading to Triple H, and as expected, he had a burst of momentum. He dropped Rhodes, caught Ted with the clothesline, delivered spine busters, all that. The pedigree, though, wasn't to be. Chaos ensued from there on. DiBiase took advantage of the ref and low-blowed the game, and this led to Legacy tagging in and out, wearing down Triple H. The commentary praised them for having an experienced mind at such a young age, and the crowd was willing Triple H back into the match. They were trying, but he was so worn out and was unable to tag in his partner. Back body drop, and it's an even playing field. Rhodes made the tag, and like an experienced vet, blocked Michaels, and the work continued with Rhodes keeping Triple H down to the mat. Fans cheered on for him, and this led to a backdrop, and it was really looking like the game was going to tag his partner in, but DiBiase blasted Michaels. At this point in time, Triple H began to show heart, and after a mistake from Ted, Shawn Michaels was in. He had momentum, the fans on his side, and gave Cody a little beating. He delivered some chops, forearms, but DiBiase puts a stop to it with a shot to the back. He gets into it with Triple H on the outside, and in the ring, Cody makes a huge mistake going for the elbow. Shawn, though, was ready to show him how it's done. Yeah, no. Rhodes cut up to him. Nonetheless, he failed to knock down the Heartbreak Kid and took the elbow. Nope. Cody blocked it with the knees. Crossroads goes south, and instead it's the figure 4. DiBiase ruins everything once more and almost takes the pedigree, but Cody makes the save. Sweet chin music wasn't to be, and Cody hits Crossroads. Michael Cole believed it was over, but Triple H breaks the fall, and behind the ref's back, He pedigreed Cody, and Ted responded with a Dream Street on Michaels. Those two fight it out on the outside, and inside the ref began the count to 10. Fans were all in at this point. They were loving this match, and as those two stand up on their feet, boom, sweet chin music. 1, 2, 3. Good ass match. I really liked this one because it made Legacy look really good. For two upstarts, DX sure made them look like vets. The heels were always a step or two ahead, and it took a sudden sweet chin music to end things. Everybody put in a performance, but I was more impressed with Legacy. They certainly didn't look out of place, and even though they lost, it's like they won in a way with that performance. Like, did anybody seriously think DX were going to lose the first match? No way in hell were they going to take the L at SummerSlam. Well, yes, that match was pretty damn good, but it ain't my favorite of the night. There were still some other matches that were better. The next match is for the ECW Championship. Christian defends the silver against William Regal. Alright, this match was expected to be good. Some were optimistic about this one, but Christian just kill switched him out of his jacket. 1, 2, 3, that's all. The match had a build up and everything if I remember, only to end in 3 seconds. Regal and his buddies attack leading to the stretch and of course a rematch at Breaking Point. And it's a very confusing booking decision to me. It's unnecessary to me, but complaining about this is like yelling at a wall. They would go on to have a good ass match a month later, and Christian's run in general is pretty damn good. Alright, and the next match is for the WWE Championship. John Cena challenged the Viper, Randy Orton, for the title. Okay, this was the summer of Cena, Triple H, Orton. One year or another, one of those three men were involved in the title picture, and the last time none of those guys were featured in the championship picture was October of 2008. Also, what is that sign? Randy Orton was probably from a character standpoint at his very best. He truly embodied what a snake was, basically, and here he debuted that buzz cut look that really enhanced his character, his look, and it made him seem much more evil. As expected, fans were very involved with the match. It had a big fight atmosphere to it as well. So the bell rings. Lock up, takedown from John before a front face lock. Orton counters using the arm, and there's a standoff. The champion's like, I don't want to do the wrestling stuff, and goes for strikes. Out of nowhere, the challenger tackled Orton and dropped him with a face buster. He stops him with a high elbow, leading to an RKO chant from the crowd. Uppercut, strikes in the corner before going for the super Irish whip in the corner. Damn, I said corner a little too much. Randy was methodical as expected, he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary, and it was Isolation 101. He's stomping on every body limb, and John Cena had yet to find the opening. Orton even hit a super knee, and just look at the height on that. The challenger tried finding his form, but took a backbreaker, a chin lock, which is the Randy Orton special. The fans tried rallying him on, let's go Cena, let's go Orton. Soon enough, he powered up and forced a break, and there's the John Cena special. Shoulder tackles, backdrop, and it's time for the 5-knuckle shuffle. Cena's in motion for the FU, but Orton pushed him away and responded with the power slam. And so it's back to work. Orton continued targeting each body part with those steps, but Cena had that knee scouted. Strikes off the rope, and Orton had that scouted. Once Cena reaches the apron, Orton grabbed him and hit the second rope DDT after a 4 count from the ref, and he thinks it's time to wrap it up. Slowly, he was stalking John, measuring him for that punt, but he misses and takes the throwback. Fans are booing at this point. John hits the leg drop off the top, and now he's looking for the AA. Orton hangs onto the rope, leading to a double clothesline. Once both men recover, they engage in a slugfest. Cena wins that battle, and Orton decides to shove the referee, causing the DQ. Slimy bastard. Reminiscent of No Way Out 2008, and it seemed like Orton was going to walk out with the title. At least that's what everyone thought, because Mr. McMahon restarted this match, and if Orton gets DQ'd, he loses the title. Immediately, Randy desperately went on the attack. Cena, though, stood his ground, and they found their way to the outside. Orton rams him into the steps, and you could really notice his desperation. Cena's kicking out, and there's no way for him to win it, so he walks out and loses by countout. Same story. Mr. McMahon restarted the match. This time, if Randy Orton gets counted out, he loses the title. Randy sprints in, desperately tries wrapping it up, but almost finds himself in the STF. Nonetheless, he caught Cena with a roll-up with his foot on the ropes, but again, a ref who had no business being out there snitches. He tattletaled on Randy, and it was restarted for the third time. This time, Orton's locked in the STF. Crowd was rabid, 50-50, they're cheering, they're booing. He's stuck in the middle of the ring when all of a sudden, a fan comes in. He gets thrown out. Randy realizes his title's been saved. The match is restarted for the 3rd, 4th, 5th. I don't even remember how many times at this point. And Orton catches John with an RKO on the ropes before hitting it once again inside the ring. 1, 2, 3. They were well on their way, in my personal opinion. It was looking like a potentially good match, but the amount of false finishes, I just didn't like it. It just sucked the fun out of the match. It was like stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. And obviously, if you're not a fan of Orton and see his matches, it wasn't good before the finishes anyway. But if you're like me, that's a different story. I don't think it would have topped SummerSlam 07. I don't think they would have done that at all. Well, it probably would have been another memorable affair between those two. But yes, it's memorable for the wrong reasons, you know, due to the fact that it had a bunch of false finishes. They would go on to have 2 excellent matches, one subpar one, before ending the feud. Oh, and that fan that interfered was Brett DiBiase. He was Ted's brother who really didn't do much other than OVW. And the main event, Jeff Hardy defends the World Heavyweight Championship against CM Punk in a TLC match. The Summer of Hardy was absolutely fun. CM Punk was a perfect foil to Jeff. He wanted people to see the light, but his approach was a problem. He was far too rude, insulting, and heartless. If you've never watched this feud, you gotta do yourself a favor. The matches, the promo, everything was good about this one. And this match was 20 minutes of hellacious action. Alright, let's go. Rough collar and elbow, no ref in sight. Punk brought the strikes and knees first. He quickly brought in a chair and used it as a weapon, and immediately he tried to steal this one, but Hardy pushed that ladder to knock him down. He tried climbing up, but CM Punk kicked him off. GTS goes south, and both men were already brutalized. Meanwhile, Table's chant intensifies as Hardy's using a chair to dive onto Punk. That didn't happen because CM Punk just dropped him on the top. And that was cringe. Like, that was a very cringe and uncomfortable spot. This, of course, led to him taking control. He hit the suicide dive. Jeff was really struggling. You know, he was doing terribly, but managed to avoid disaster before retaliating. A table is brought in, and Hardy just so happened to be the victim. Because of this, CM Punk attempted to take advantage by climbing the rungs of a tall-ass ladder. Hardy catches up, actually overtakes Punk, but he ends up connecting with the sunset flip. Jeff tries going up himself. He's slow as hell, leading to Punk tipping him over, and he awkwardly landed. To make matters worse, he received a superplex directly onto the ladder. Punk himself was hurting greatly for this, and once both men recovered, Jeff quickly rebounds with a twist of fate before attempting the swanton. That doesn't go well, and at this point, CM Punk had Jeff scouted. He was always blocking, countering his big moves. Corner knee from Punk, but he fails to connect with a bulldog, and instead lands through a table. Once more, Jeff Hardy climbs up. Punk is there to put a stop, and he almost follows up with a chair thing that he did 3 weeks earlier, but he essentially unlocked an angry side to the champion. This leads to Hardy climbing up to the very top of this tall-ass ladder, taller than the other ones, and he hits this swanton that was certainly memorable. And then kayfabe showed just how much Hardy hated Punk. Then again, this is Jeff Hardy we're talking about. He'd probably do this to somebody who gave him the wrong order. The medical team came out to aid and assist Hardy out of there, but he refused to stay down. CM Punk, meanwhile, was slowly crawling up to the top, and at this point, he was like, what is going to stop this man? He was really getting frustrated. Hardy catches up. They strike each other back and forth, but Punk, though, didn't take much damage like Jeff did earlier and capitalized. He kicked him in the midsection before striking him down, and the hero falls. Punk retrieves the title, and he became the new champion. Alright, that was too much. It was a spot fest of epic proportions. Hardy showed more heart, whereas Punk was smarter. He blocked a bunch of his big moves, didn't take as much damage as him, and in the end had something to show for that performance. The world title, of course. Also, WWE certainly didn't give us enough time to say goodbye to Jeff Hardy. Like, by the end of the week, he was gone, and I always hear that a bunch of kids stopped watching WWE because of it. I remember despising every fiber of Punk's being at the time. He was enemy number 1 for getting rid of Jeff Hardy and taking his title, and words can't describe it. But with that said, the match was best of the night. And if you disagree, well, just go watch it again. It was another memorable TLC match, and while it's not my favorite, it's definitely one of the more memorable TLC matches in both men's careers, especially in Punk's. After the match, the lights began flickering, and I loved how nobody seemed to have connected the dots in the crowd. Suddenly you hear the gong, and the Undertaker emerges from Jeff Hardy's spot. Punk's in shock, the crowd's going insane, and he hits the chokeslam. It was a tremendous way to end the show. Taker hadn't been seen on SmackDown since WrestleMania 25, and it was a nice / fresh way of having him return, because before this, I don't think CM Punk and The Undertaker ever had a match. We all know what occurred following this, but in this moment of time, CM Punk was riding high. And that's SummerSlam. Personally, I enjoyed this pay-per-view. You know, it was an easy watch. I had fun, especially with the opener, the DX tag match, and the main event. Those 3 matches elevate the show greatly. And other than that, there was just some average matches. The John Cena and Randy Orton thing just shouldn't have gone down the way it did. They should have had a one-on-one match that had 1 finish, not 3 or 4 false finishes. And that puts a damper on the show, you know, like, that match should have delivered. Had it delivered, I'd consider this to be one of the greatest SummerSlams of all time. Still, though, it was a pretty damn good show. Definitely one of the best from WWE in 2009. Alright, what did you guys think of SummerSlam 2009? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the sweet chin music on the like button and perhaps the GTS on the subscribe button. Peace.